some years ago, I always remember this when, Cathy said, people say, well, I feel unified with that tree, and she said, I never felt unified, that's BS, But she said, I don't feel separate from anything, and I never have. And that's just the opposite way of looking at it, but it's the same thing.
Yes.
But it doesn't sound so phony.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I feel unified with that beautiful landscape. Just don't feel separate from it. That's how you put it. Remember that?
Mm-hmm, yeah. I was kind of annoyed when people talk that way. Because it just sounded silly. But maybe it's a valid expression.
They're both
if
valid.
The connection is really strong, then you could perhaps justify that kind of expression.
Well, is it because it's too concrete? It doesn't have the subtlety of the actual experience when people say, "I feel unified with this tree."
Right.
It sounds funny to me too, because you don't really feel unified. You feel some kind of oneness or wholeness or non-separation. There seems to be a better way to describe it.
Yes. Well, I think this is interesting. It's touching on an issue that a lot of people I find concretize or turn into like tools, something that is very subtle and very how to call it?
Nuanced.
Yes.
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 Yeah.
And it doesn't really work, because then they try to, if you try to kind of adjust or make yourself like you think you should be experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
The words aren't completely conveying the experience, they're conveying an intellectual concept as well, something like that.
Yeah.
So what you think it should be.
Yes.
And I'm not saying it isn't, but has that quality to it a little bit, almost like I'm bragging.
Well, the language has to change when you're talking at more subtle levels.
Yes, and it
No
does.
question about it.
Yeah.
The tools have to change.
Mm-hmm.
The tools of understanding, the sensory activity has to become more subtle. And it happens because, on a regular basis, you're experiencing that more subtle value. So everything about the physiology becomes realigned with that.
Right. And then also the way you think and the way you talk about these issues become a lot more nuanced and precise.
Did you ever tell Amir about how Harri used to pester me all the time about my understanding and experience of unity consciousness? And and he'd tell me what I was feeling. And I would say, Harri, you can't do that. You don't know what I'm feeling.
Uh-huh.
But when I experienced that, I wasn't separate from anything. The change was extraordinarily subtle. I really didn't have much to say about it, except that it was definitely a clear experience. But and then I started understanding Harri a lot better. And Harri found that he could talk to me much better. So it's extremely, extremely delicate.
This is really fascinating.
Yeah.
When did that happen? How long ago?
Maybe 6 years ago.
Pretty recent.
Yeah.
Okay, so I find it fascinating, just this story, because it's like you were kind of living with the teaching.
Yes.
For many, many years.
Oh, yes, many years.
And would you say that not that that's what Harri was saying, but what you thought he was saying was actually a hindrance to your actually realizing it for yourself?
I never thought that.
No, but now in retrospect.
Now, in retrospect, no.
Because I think that a lot of people, they hear teachers deliver sublime teachings, but they understand it through their own not as subtle and
Right.
evolved tools of perception.
Right.
And then the teaching that they hear actually become a hindrance, because they think, oh, I understand what the teacher is saying. That's not my experience.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is, I was never that intense about my experience. I think if you take that understanding and you feel very intense about it or very focused on it, and you think, okay, he's saying this, and and this is my experience, and it's not correct. Yeah, that could be a real problem.
Mm-hmm.
But I never felt that intense about it. I would just say, I've got to go to sleep now. Yeah, I didn't.
So do you have a sense of why that happened 6 years ago?
It was time. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have anything more to say about it except it was time, and I'd had experiences in the past that were building up
Mm-hmm.
to that understanding, of course. Mm-hmm. And listening to Harri, I mean, I wasn't a very good student, but in time it too, it built up. But I didn't speak, I don't generally speak because Harri's a yak a lot.
You're doing pretty good.
It just keeps on going. But, because he has a much more profound level from which he's coming. So I just listen, but I'm now getting a lot of benefit from what he's saying, a lot more than I did before. Because I'm understanding it now. And it's completely spontaneous. It's not like I had to study it or work at it or anything like that. When I realized I was no longer separate from the objects and the whole environment, I started understanding Harri.
It was overnight.
Yeah.
It happened overnight. Yeah. And believe me, we've been talking for 50 years.
Yes.
Longer.
Uh-huh. There were times when we were first married and we'd go to bed at night and there's Harri. He's lying there and he's talking up a storm and I'm just dying. I have to go to sleep and I'll fall asleep and I'll wake up and say, uh-huh. And he'd keep on going and then I'd fall asleep and then I wake up and say, uh-huh. It was just awful. I really needed to go to sleep, but he really needed to talk about his experience. And so it's come a long way from those days. Yes. Now he can actually engage me when I'm trying to go to sleep. Because it triggers something inside that works for me now.